Welcome, Traceable Designers. Today we're making the super easy gathered Valance side panels. These side panels are hung using a pleated connector panel in the center to cover the rod. They can be expanded, they can be made small or wide for a cornice style design. You'll find this Valance design style inside of the Traceable Designer No-Sew Pleated and Gathered Valance kit. We're going to make side panels separately today. We're going to make a left side panel and a right side panel. So we'll cut a single fabric layer without using the fold. We will also be adding height to the top of the panel for the rod pocket. Doing it as a single panel makes it much easier when you're expanding or making a wider side panels. So make sure that the left side of your fabric is very straight, and I have cut my panel exactly to size so I don't have any excess on the bottom. But since we're making a 1 1/4 inch rod pocket, we will be adding 2.5 inches to the upper section above the design form used without lining to make your hanging rod pocket. Make sure the top of your fabric is very straight, and then just slide your design form down to mark off the 2.5 inch rod pocket area. Then start tracing on the right side of the form. Make sure you have a real nice strong trace there that you can see. Since I cut my fabric a little bit shorter, yours would probably be about 18.5 inches. You'll just trace across the entire bottom section of the design form to mark off the shape. You want to put a little mark where there are changes or breaks for the indent or for the lower edge. Then just carefully follow your trace line to cut out your first side panel Valance fabric. Make sure all of your fabric is ironed nice and flat without wrinkles. I'm going to use a white lining. Now the lining is the exact size of the design form, expanded a little past the sides. For our front fabric, we did add a rod pocket area. So when you are cutting your lining, it will be the height of the design form, but you do want excess around all the edges. Now, since I'm using a white lining, direction is irrelevant. If I did have a print and I wanted to put both printed sides together, I would have to make sure I positioned it properly when cutting out the left and the right panel. So just follow along your design form. I've added, like you can see, about 1/2 inch or 1 inch around all edges. Then just cut out your lining, and then we'll be ready to attach it to the front fabric. Okay, to attach your lining to your front Valance fabric, you want to make sure that it's positioned properly to leave that unlined rod pocket section on top. So we're going to be using the seam tape that's included in your kit. This will be fused to the edges, and then we'll just make sure that we mark off where we begin the seam tape so that we have the lining positioned properly. So you can see where your rod pocket markers are on the side. You'll put that on the front side of your fabric, the right side, and then we'll just mark the left and right side so we know where to begin the placement of the seam tape. Now remember, the seam tape is going on the front, not the back. Turn the steam off of your iron so you're using a dry iron, and then you'll position your seam tape at that mark so that you have the upper section free of lining so you can make your unlined rod pocket. So we're just going to follow the seam tape along the edge. Don't let it overlap onto your ironing board. Leave a slight little margin there. And then we're going to mimic the shape of the panel. So we want to make sure we have nice crisp corners. So just tear the fusible backing and let it just follow along the edges. So each time you have a break, you'll tear it, and then you'll reposition your fusible tape right along the edge. Make sure to remember to stop your seam tape at the rod pocket section on top. So you've got a marker there, and you want to make sure you don't go above that. So tear off your tape, leaving that rod pocket area open. Make sure that your tape is completely cooled before removing to expose the glue. You want to make sure that that has 100% cooled or it won't pull off properly. Now we're positioning our lining right where our markers were for our rod pocket, and then very important, you start right in the center and sweep out toward the sides. This will remove any buckling. So you'll start in the middle, sweep out toward the sides, and then secure your edges, and then sweep down and along the bottom. Once you've smoothed everything out, then you can go back along your edges to make sure they're nice and secure and fused. So now to prepare the fabric for turning, we're going to want to remove the excess lining that's showing so that it's not bulky. And then we're going to cut the little edges off, just the points, and make sure you don't cut all the way through the fusible backing. And then you'll cut in the indent, making little snips, and then at the curved section. Okay, to finish our valance, we're going to turn it right side out so the front of the fabric's showing and the lining is on the back. Take your time with this. Just press your fingers in the corners and run them along the seams so that you can pull the shape together. You'll see it start to come into life here. So just push it and continue to manipulate it carefully. Take your time until it's all completely finished. Then we're going to be securing the lining to the back so that it doesn't sag. Just iron along your edges and fix it as you go along. Make sure it's all perfect. And once you get that all fused down, then we're going to secure the lining to the back of the panel and then make our rod pocket. So just follow along until everything's nice and flat and your corners are all nice and straight. Turn your panel with the rod pocket section facing you and then pull the fabric toward you. You want to make sure there's no buckling along the bottom. Then you're going to cut pieces of fusible backing to put inside of the seams and then behind the lining. So you're going to fuse that down behind the lining and then again pull your fabric up before you iron that fusible tape in place because you want to make sure there is no buckling at all. Adding the seam tape behind the lining prevents it from hanging down and sagging and being seen from the front of the valance when it's hung. So make sure when you are securing the lining you do pull it up so that it is raised as far as it needs to be before you actually secure it down to the fusible backing tape. Okay, our final step is to make the rod pocket, so you'll fold that fabric over to meet the lining top edge and then just iron it down to flatten it. Then pull out your fusible backing sheet that's included in your kit and you're going to cut a strip that's going to fit inside of the rod pocket area without extending over onto the lining or onto your ironing board. Then you want to make sure that if it's a little short you add a little piece there. Let the backing completely cool, then pull your pocket taunt over top of the lining and then just fuse that in place. So since you're fusing a folded section it may take a bit longer. Once you've completed both left and right side panels, you will need a connector panel in the middle, so the pleated connector panel is a perfect match. Make sure to watch the pleated connector panel video tutorial for instructions. We've created a 1 1/4 inch rod pocket because we're using a 1 inch rod. We want that to be secure so that we can gather the panel and have that hold in place. So then you'll just put both of your side panels on your rod and add your Velcro connector and you're ready to hang your beautiful new valance. Thank you for joining me, Traceable Designers, and remember you can always make your mark with Traceable Designer.